Hello, and welcome back to the podcast where you are invited for lighthearted conversations about things that matter as you seek to live your most meaningful, beautiful, and joyful life. I'm your host, Dr. Edie Wadsworth, and I hope you enjoy your stay here at the House of Joy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back. House of Joy.
Hi,
go.
Emily May.
We're back for the week.
We're back. We're so excited to be here, you guys. It took 9 million years to get all of our settings right. Please pray for us. And our lovely
We have to shout out Katie.
production girl, Katie, and our amazing, what would you call Brooks?
Brooks. He's,
our right-hand man.
Angel.
Our angel, right-hand
he
man.
fixes
Thank you, Brooks,
everything.
for helping us get it.
If you notice that the audio is better today.
Tom was our producer last week, and we were on the struggle bus. But I think we're better today. We are excited about this episode, you guys. We are going to be talking about the mysterious God's will in relation to making life transitions, like big decisions. I'm going to talk a little bit about quitting my job as family doctor. Emmy's going to talk a little bit about the transition that she made from the job she took out of college to doing this with us. So a lot of personal story kind of infused there, but also some principles that I learned years ago that have helped me so much demystify the whole topic of, is this God's will? And I put that in quotes because I think we way overuse that. And we're going to talk about that today. It's kind of a buzzy word.
Christian word.
Yeah, in
God's
the
will.
Christian community. And we're going to demystify that. I hope what we share today is just going to just give you so much peace and help you relax around the topic of, am I doing exactly, people, what I'm supposed to be doing, and am I in God's will? When I grew up, it was like, not only was it like, are you in God's will? The pastors would say, are you in the center of God's will? I'm like, well, I don't know.
Are you on the right path? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So this topic has definitely, I've gotten a lot of peace from talking with you about it, having my own self-growth and my own idea of what this means for myself too. So yeah, I hope it does. I know a lot of people my age are currently trying to figure out if they are doing the right thing, if they should stay on the steady path that they're on, or if they're called to something else. So I think a lot of people.
This is going to be great. So if you feel like you're struggling with big decisions, you're in a transition, maybe you've made some big decisions, here's the other thing, and things start to go not that well, and you're like, oh, maybe I made the wrong decision. Maybe I'm not in God's will. So we're going to give lots of encouragement and peace today, which is what the scriptures always do when we rightly divide them, when we, read them, I think in the way that God intended us to. So I'm really excited to jump into this. I think it might be good to start with some of our personal story.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I actually haven't seen Mom in like a week or two. So how are you doing, girl?
I'm doing great. I was sick last week.
You were sick.
I'm feeling lots better. I actually, is it weird to say sometimes that you enjoy sickness? Like there was obviously parts of it I didn't enjoy, but I love some good downtime.
Yep.
Speaking of, you have a story from this weekend. You're still craving that downtime that you didn't get.
Yes. So it was my boyfriend's birthday, Haddon's birthday, Tuesday of last week. And on Tuesday, we just went to dinner. We hung out. It was really fun. But his friends came all from wherever they came from to town on his birthday, which is so fun. We went to dinner on Friday night. And, as young 20-somethings do, like, they all wanted to go out, which is totally fine. Like, it was fun. But me and my roommates aren't drinking right now. Mm-hmm. And it's more of a challenge. It's not like a very strict thing. We don't have issues with drinking, but it's just like more to challenge ourselves to see how long we can do it. And so I knew going into this, like, going to a bar where everyone is drinking and not drinking is a inwardly introverted person's worst nightmare because everyone is like so easily like talking to each other and having so much fun, and like I'm very much in my head in those situations where it's like, I don't know, having a drink is always a nice crutch to have.
Which is also a good thing to be aware of when you're like, oh, let's not do this for a while and see what happens.
Yeah, just see what happens. And honestly, I am very proud of myself. I did not drink the whole night, but we stayed up, you know, as people do.
As 20-somethings might.
I didn't get home till like 1:30. Okay? And so I didn't actually...
already I'm out.
Oh my gosh. It was, I woke up the next day and I turned over to one of Haddon's friends and I was like, I feel like I've gotten hit by a truck. It's just crazy how fast I've like went into grandma.
Two of his friends spent the night with you.
They were with me too the whole weekend, which was so fun. But I like truly was so exhausted.
I think you're just getting old like your mother. You
I
like
used
to go to bed
think
early.
of you though. I was like, why is she so lame? Like she can't even stay up past like 10 p.m. That felt like early. 10 p.m. felt early. I was like, come on,
come on, mother.
And now, I really can't stay up. Last night I stayed up I stayed up till 11 and I was like,
you're still paying for
wanting
it
to
today.
cry because it was so late.
That is exactly how I feel when it gets late. I just want to cry.
I don't know. As I've gotten older, like even the social thing, like I used to feel so like, and I love talking to people and I'm so glad that I got to hang out with all of those people. It was a great night.
Yes.
It's just crazy to me that somehow I have like passed over into this like
need to go to bed.
I can't function after a certain point. Like I'm just staying there. My friends say that I get this like stare, this blank stare where
your mother
there's
gets it too.
nothing in my eyes and everyone is like, are you okay?
Inside.
Like go upstairs. Like you clearly can't hang anymore.
Yep.
But anyway, I just thought it was interesting. I feel like I'm still recovering. And it's been a few days, so
I love it.
You just like really keep me in your thoughts because
this is
not how I thought my future would go. I thought I was gonna be like, I don't know.
Yeah, you're in for more of that. So there.
I do love it. I will say, like, my life now versus when I was like,
doesn't it feel so
going
grounded
out?
though? Like you have such a good routine and you love getting your steps in and your nutrition and your workout and your sleep.
Is there a side of it that's like, I think I can easily fall into like, okay, you can miss one night of your nighttime routine.
You can.
But it gives me a little bit of heart palpitations. I didn't have my nightly cocktail. My mocktail. I didn't get in bed. Like, I actually felt very stressed about that.
Yeah, I know. This is me. Well, we are excited to share parts of our story today, like big decisions that we both made, where it would be easy to second guess yourself, or it would be easy to tell yourself, like, or endlessly question, like, you know, is this decision, is this part of God's will for my life or whatever? And when we were talking about this, you were like, you know, I'm sure people would be really interested to hear about your transition when you quit working. And I had practiced, I mean, I think most of you know this, but I was a medical doctor for years, which takes forever and a lot of money.
All of medical school.
To get through, like all of medical school, all of residency. And then I practiced for, I don't know, maybe 8 years before I decided to quit. And I was in a multi-specialty group with your dad, and we worked right across the hall from each other. So we were like husband and wife at home and like husband and wife at work. It was so fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun during those years, just working right across the hall from him. And, you know, when you see your spouse in their role, like there's a certain level of admiration and respect that you have for them. And we made the decision together, he and I, that I would quit. You had just finished kindergarten, I think, and were really struggling. You would do fine at school, but then you were really struggling after school, needing a lot of. It's funny that we had the story about downtime because it took you a while to recover from having to be at school all day.
Yeah, I'm still that way.
And function all day, and she would get in the car and like cry for an hour or two.
No, literally me. I'm like, I go to a social function and then go home and cry for an hour. I'm just kidding. Not every time.
Yeah, and Taylor and Katie Ellie was a baby, you know, well, she was 3 or 4, and then Taylor and Katie were really busy with their activities, and it just felt like too much stress. It's like, it's
I was
too
gonna
much
ask,
already.
I feel like I was so young at this time. Like, I don't really remember you working.
Yeah.
Like, as a doctor.
Yeah.
But did you feel like your whole life was like stress? And
It was so much stress.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. But I have kind of functioned my whole life running on adrenaline like that. So it just felt like, because medical school's all like that. It's just basically one big adrenaline thing after another.
Well, you told me, so you had Taylor and Katie, they were what, like 10-ish?
At the time, yeah.
At the time. You had me and Ellie who were like...
You had just finished, Taylor was probably more like 12. You had just finished kindergarten.
Okay, and then you would work on the weekends.
Well, that's when you first were born. When you first were born, I was actually working at a regular office job, doing medical practice from an office when I quit. When I first got out of medical school, when you were babies. I worked.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I worked in the ER and I would work all night, Friday night, Saturday night, come home for a few hours during the day, sleep a little, play with you guys. And then that way I could be with you all week. So it was really, I mean, it was great.
And how many years did you do?
We did that for about 2.5 years. And then I went to medical practice with Dad.
And that's where you were just every day, like 9
every
to
day,
5,
like a clinic, 9 to 5. And so I had kind of a special contract back then where I didn't take call. So it was, it still was a good schedule, but it was just so much. And I felt like I was missing too many things during the day and you were really struggling. So we decided for me to come home. And it was such a hard transition because everybody has an opinion about what they think you should be doing.
Just about to say, I think most people, especially at that time, like doing anything other than a very like straight and narrow job, especially when you already went through all of medical school.
Yeah.
You literally have worked there so long. You have a lot of kids.
Yes.
Like, did you feel like people around you did not respect that decision?
So, I mean, there were so few people who understood. So few.
I mean, I can imagine at the time, it's like you literally have everything. Like,
you have everything.
You have this job that
you have
so
this
many
amazing
people.
Job. Yeah. And like I was giving up $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
So I was giving up a lot of income and I was giving up, well, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had my identity so wrapped up in that job. That's how I defined myself. That's how I related to Dad. We had this sort of mutual admiration and respect.
That's how y'all met.
That's how we met. Yeah. And so it was just so hard. The year that I came home, I had never really stayed home, full time like that. It was such a struggle. I felt so lost. It just was kind of terrible. And I ended up falling into, some bad habits because I didn't know how to process the emotion. I didn't even recognize that what I was doing at the time was just avoiding all the emotion because giving up something like that is a loss. And I didn't take time to grieve that or whatever. And then you've got the judgment of everybody else who thinks they know what you should be doing.
Right.
And it was a rough patch.
Initially, when did you decide, okay, I'm going to quit my practice? Because that seems like a very harsh going from working in this very stable job to then deciding I'm going to quit, lose all that money. Or, how did you get to that point? Yeah.
I think it was just being in tune with my kids and being sensitive to what I thought you guys needed at the time. And it really is what I wanted, but you can want two things. There were parts of practicing and having that like identity and that prestige and that income, of course, that I loved. And it felt like an impossible decision. But ultimately, I kind of went with no, my heart right now is to be with my kids. This season in their life is not going to last that long. I kind of thought maybe you might need some homeschooling for a while so you could settle down your little nervous system and, not have to deal with such a harsh transition at school. There's a lot of reasons. And I'm so, I cannot tell you how thankful I am that I had the courage. It felt like going against the grain.
Yeah.
And choosing something that nobody understood.
Do you feel like, because I think part of what we wanted to talk about today was God's will. And I think and not to say this is always bad, but especially as I've come to my own faith and been able to intake my own, instruction and what I really believe. A lot of people in today's culture surrounding Christianity highlight a lot of what God tells them and how to know God's will.
Yeah.
At the time, did you feel like it was at all something that, you know, you felt like your faith was leading you there, or was it more?
Yeah. And Dad and I had been listening to this podcast called Issues, Etc. And there was so much, we were kind of like just coming back to the faith. So I kind of joke that I introduced Dad to C.S. Lewis and cornbread, and he introduced me to Martin Luther and, you know, the historic church and the historic theology. And there's something really, really beautiful in the historic theology around calling and around God's will that's basically this simple premise that, you know, God has a will for humanity, that we be saved. He made the way for that in Christ, and that, you know, we love and serve our neighbor. But beyond that, there's so much Christian freedom. And I think what I had taken in my upbringing in the faith is that, no, there's like this path that's laid out in heaven where you go to this college and you choose this guy and you have these kids and you take this job.
There are right and wrong
There's
decisions.
a right and wrong way to do it, which kind of takes away, you know, a lot of your Christian freedom. And I was just kind of breaking free from that. And we had been listening to this podcast, and there were a lot of teachings on that, like on what does it mean to be in God's will. I remember one of the metaphors that it made so much sense is that so often we're searching for God's will like it's some kind of Where's Waldo? Like, let me see if I can find it. It's like a puzzle to be figured out.
It's not easy to figure out.
It's not easy. The Lord is hiding it from
you.
And can you be, and worse yet, like, are you spiritual enough?
Well, that's how
to
I felt.
Figure it out.
When I was first coming back to my faith, like, on the side that I was feeling so thankful to feel my own, I almost felt like I did actually feel the Holy Spirit, and I really did feel. There was another side of me that was like, but I'm not feeling what these people are talking about. Like, I almost did feel not good enough in my faith, and not like I didn't know enough. I must not be praying the right way. I must not be like
and this
because
is exactly,
I'm not seeing God's
will.
will.
I didn't hear from God. And what I learned back then is that there's two sides to that coin. So you can either be doubtful and despairing, which is it's exactly the same thing I would do. Because I told you this earlier, but I looked back at like my high school, like what I wanted to do from high school, and I wanted to be a good Christian and be a missionary in China or Africa, and have 6 kids, because that to me is what I thought was the ultimate way to prove that you're like the best kind of Christian. And I look at my life and it looks nothing like that. And I think it's easy in a situation where if you look at it that way, you're either doubting that, well, I must not pray enough or be spiritual enough because I don't hear from God in that way. Or, so I don't look at every step of my life and say, is this little thing God's will? Should I wear fuchsia today? Should I go to this lunch place? Should I whatever?
Like getting so granular
about it. Or you can, or what I think happens is you get self-righteous when you're convinced that all of those little things are from God. And you're like, well, I'm super spiritual because
everything in my life
is yes. And so I think you can fall off the horse on either side if that's the way you look at it, instead of going like, no, we have so much Christian freedom, and how can I follow the principles that he has set forth? He has spoken on things. There are things in Scripture, but whether I go to this college or that college or work at this place or that place, that is a matter of Christian freedom.
I think that's something I have learned as my own faith has developed into a strong relationship with him, and just like you just start to see the world and become more wise. And I feel like I know myself better because of my relationship with the Lord now. But I feel like the more that you study the Word and know more about who God is, then it's like not everything in your life is going to be the path God. You choose which way you turn.
Yeah.
And if you're going off
trusting his Spirit in you, and you do pray, and you do the best you can. But I think making it a matter of like your spirituality, I just think it's confusing to people, and it makes people doubt their faith in a way that I don't think is helpful. It certainly did me. And I think it can hamstring it. I think we can feel hamstrung by it, where it feels almost impossible to make decisions because we're like, I don't know. Did I hear from the Lord? I don't feel a certain way, or did I hear from the Lord, or did I whatever? And, you know, like back when I was making this decision, it felt so clear to me, not that I heard from the Lord, but just that I was trusting myself.
You're walking in the way that
yeah,
makes sense with your values and your morals that you have gotten from being a follower of Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
If you are a true follower of Christ, then those fruits are in you.
They start to show up. Yeah, and so I just like trusted that, and I'm so thankful for that, and so thankful that kind of at the same time I was learning these teachings about God's will or about calling, because the other thing is, like, I think we do have a misconstrued view of calling in a lot of Christianity, where we value things that feel more Christian more than others. So if we're a missionary, well, then we're a better Christian, or that means more than if we're working at the garden center at Lowe's. Mm-hmm. And what I have learned over the years is that, no, there are neighbors to serve everywhere, and God's will is that you love him and serve your neighbor. So is there a neighbor I can serve in this job that I have? Well, great. And that to me is so freeing, that it doesn't have to be a big important job. It can be whatever job you have. There's a neighbor to serve. I feel like
that's where I got to in my job before I left, where I was like, I got to the point where I found that I could have purpose in that job.
Yes.
Even if it's not even the job I necessarily like was passionate about.
Yeah.
I could still find purpose in that job. Yes. And it just so happens that I felt confident enough to pursue.
To make a change.
And do something that I also felt like I could serve others with. And
in your freedom that you have as a believer to just say, oh, this sounds fun, to go try this job. I mean, I told Emmy when she was making the decision to leave her medical assistant job and come work with us, I said, look, no pressure. You could do this for 6 months and go, well, that was great. And, you know, I'm going to try something else. Like, I was reading that, you know, used to people would get one job and they would have that job, you know, for like 40 years. Now the average amount of times that people change jobs is like 12 times. Yeah. So you're going to have lots of different jobs. And there's never a shortage of neighbors who need to be served, of people who need what we have to offer, whether that's a kind word. I mean, look at how many people when you were in that job that you were able to serve and care for and be an encouragement to, and like all the things that you did there. Yeah. So many ways that you can serve your neighbor there. And there's so many ways in every job to do that. It's more like an attitude of your heart than what the job actually is. The actual job doesn't matter.
I was going to ask you, like, going back to your story when you first decided to quit.
Yeah.
What steps did you take to find true purpose in what you were doing? Because you went from feeling like there's a lot of evidence of the things that you're doing.
Yeah.
Versus, I mean, not that there's not in homeschooling your kids, but now you're working from home.
Yeah.
There's a lot of worldly evidence to tell you that that's not enough. That's not real job. Like, you should be doing more. How did you...
Again, it was like learning this sort of teaching about calling that, because again, even in the secular world, we sort of have this hierarchy, like to be a doctor is more noble than to be, you know, someone working at Lowe's. And I just learned that's just not true. Yeah. And that there's no hierarchy, and actually it could be worse for your soul to be a doctor if you lose your soul, you know, while you're doing that. And to find like the sacredness in just sort of the mundane work of being home and taking care of kids. I was reading a lot of C.S. Lewis and G.K. Chesterton at the time, and I remember reading something by G.K. Chesterton that was like, you know, and I equated it to like, okay, I can be the person who refills John's blood pressure, and that could be a noble calling, and I could be serving him. or for this brief period of time when my kids are home, I can be so many different things to them.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just so clear to me that that's how I wanted to spend those years. And those years, you know, are brief. And I don't say that to cause anybody else to feel guilt or shame. We're all on our journeys, and we all have different reasons for why we have to do what we have to do. When I quit medicine, I had just paid off. I mostly got scholarships to go to medical school, but I had a small amount of student loans. And I remember when I paid those student loans off, it then felt possible for me to have a choice. Yeah. And so before then, I just didn't feel like, I'm like, gosh, our bills are so much that it doesn't feel like a choice. So I don't use that to say, you know, what anybody else should do. I think you have to really, you know, you're the one in your life and in your family knowing what you need to do in what situation. But for me at the time, it felt clear to me like, oh, this is my next step. Yeah. And it led to so much growth and so many amazing things in my life that I'm really thankful for it. I did want to read. I found this, you know, we talk a lot that this podcast is kind of like
your old blog,
a nod back to my old blog. And I want to read something that I wrote back then that I think will like really drive the point home. And we'll link to this in the show notes. But I wanted to do this because I think that it really speaks to this. And it's talking about feeling like we need to do something that feels important to society, or like this is an honorable job or a noble job. And I said, part of our problem may be our misguided view of God's will. Baking blueberry scones seems like a paltry offering to the God of the universe, but then my family needs breakfast. So I find myself torn. Am I wasting all this time and talent that I have on breakfast? Wasn't I created for so much more? I've always been tortured by the words God's will for as long as I can remember. I've kept a journal, and if not for a certain house fire, you would see that many of my entries had to do with all the things regarding God's will. Was I in it? Was I in the center of it? How could I discern it? How could I locate it? How could I follow it? And back then I remember having a fear of not following it. And I think I was second guessing myself. And then I pick up right here and say, I was always second guessing everything in my life because I wasn't sure if this friend or this class or this date was part of God's will for my life or not. And it was exhausting. I began to wish there was some kind of meter you could buy that would turn all the more red as you got closer to something that was God's will for your life. In that very mystic shrouded view of God's will, I'm sure I missed it all the time. But then I became Lutheran and learned about calling and vocation, and it transformed everything about my life. And this is where I think it's so important. God's will is for you to be saved. He has made every provision for that salvation himself. He's given you everything you need in Jesus' perfect life and death and resurrection. You don't need to do anything to please him or find him or discern his will. He has found you. He's pleased with Jesus and sees you as one redeemed by Christ. Now, he has placed you in various stations in life. And he has called you to serve your neighbor because he's met all your needs. He's gifted you in certain ways so that you may serve your neighbor and meet his needs. And the beautiful kicker is that God hides himself in your vocation so that all the service you render to your neighbor is sacred because it is in reality God at work in you and through you, meeting the needs of your neighbor. And so today you're going to be plagued with self-doubt. You're going to wonder when your big break is coming, when you're going to get that big job. When are you going to be recognized for all of your gifts and abilities? When are you going to do more than change diapers and wash clothes and bake bread and put away Christmas decorations? Well, guess what? God sees your everyday menial tasks as sacred work. You are his hands and feet in the world. That meal you cooked yesterday, it was for Jesus. Those 10 diapers you changed, as unto the Lord. And someday you'll stand in heaven and say, Lord, when did I make cheeseburger soup for you? And he'll say, when you did it for the least of these. You are without a doubt right smack dab in the middle of God's will when you are doing all the things you do every day to serve the people around you.
Like, why am I crying?
Why am I crying? Because I think I think we do think, though, that it has to be, you know, something big and important. And what I learned from staying home with you guys and those homeschooling years, is that all of those things are just as important, just another way that I can use my gifts and serve my neighbor as when I was refilling John's blood pressure medicine. And I think to me, it just gave me so much relief. Again, so much freedom. I think it's what gave me the freedom to eventually start my own business. That, the world probably looks at, oh, she's a physician at an office. That feels legit. Versus now, she's a life coach doing what at home in her own kitchen and sitting on her own couch? I don't know. Like, people don't understand it as much.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that I can't be of service to the people that I'm called to serve every day. And I think when we're okay with that, we stop worrying what everybody else thinks we should do.
And you start living
and
in
you
that
live
truth.
your actual life.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that is just such a relief, because even now, like, even when you changed a job into the one that you feel more purpose in, it's so easy to feel like you're not doing enough.
Yep.
Especially when you're thinking about your faith and just like that aspect of your purpose and your calling.
Yep.
It's so easy to look at your everyday life and feel like there's no way that this is what that this is
Does this
purposeful.
really matter?
Does
Right.
this matter? Am I doing enough? Am I serving enough people?
Yeah.
Am I bringing enough people? Am I being discipled enough people?
Yeah.
It's just easy to fall into that, especially like with the culture of Christianity today. I think there's so much pressure to have this perfect faith.
Yeah.
And to be so bold about it and to be doing the most. And if you're not doing the most, there's that like part of you that's kind of scared.
Yeah.
Which I think I'm moving past that, but like that whole passage is just like, gosh, it made me cry.
And doesn't it just feel like, don't you feel so much relief?
I don't have
to do any of that.
God is
I'm
working
not earning
through
something with God.
Yes.
Right? Like, he's done it all. And I'm not earning anything with him. What I'm doing is turning my focus off myself and to my neighbor. So the other thing that I find when we become obsessed with God's will and did I make the right decision and is we're so focused on ourselves instead of saying, who can I serve today? Mm-hmm. Who needs my encourage today? Who needs what I have to offer?
And it doesn't have to be some like...
And it can be a scone.
Yeah.
A glass of water. All the little things that we do every day.
I think it's easy, especially for me, when you're looking at doing something out of God's will, it's easy for that to get confused with doing something to make it seem like you're doing it from God's will.
Yes.
And it's really just a selfish want to prove that you are good enough, really.
Yes. And who am I focused on in that?
It's really
yourself.
What it gives
and
you.
what it gives you.
What it makes you feel better for. What it covers up that you're lacking in. Well, I did this. Even though I'm lacking in these 4 areas, at least I, did God, I performed. It's almost a performance. And I feel like that leaves you even more empty.
Yes.
It's kind of like a lie when it's not coming from.
Yes. And I have found that what I was trying to do, I've said this often, when I was in medical practice, there were lots of it that I loved, but I didn't feel like I could bring all of me to the table. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a whole other side to my personality and the gifts that I've been given that I felt kind of constrained. Like, I don't know if you even know this, but, of course, I love decor and I love making spaces cozy. So my exam rooms, I had lamps and artwork and kids' toys and candles.
Sterile,
it's
and then you go
sterile
into
thing, except you go into my office and it's like, it's a party in here. Yeah. And so I did as much as I could, like, bring my gifts to the table. But, I think that's part of what I've been doing the last 10 years as I really figure out, like, okay, what impact do I want to make? What gift can I give the world? And I've just been able to become more of myself without worrying about what do people think about that? And is this the fullest expression of me that I can bring the world? Is this the fullest expression of God in me that I can bring the world? And I feel like I get closer and closer to that. Yeah. Like for you, like when you were a medical assistant, yeah, you can serve people and you can serve your neighbor, and that is great. And if you want to stay in that forever, that is great. It's no more spiritual than, or less spiritual than what you're doing now, right?
No, 100%.
But you ask yourself like, oh, okay, in that job, I could
I do feel
bring
like
more of my gifts to the table.
And part of this was just like, it's a struggle of who I am sometimes.
Yes.
But
I remember you asking me like, so what's my title going to be?
Right.
And I'm like, I don't even know what mine is.
Right. But I felt like as a medical assistant, you know,
could say
as
to
long
people,
as it's no less spiritual, I did feel like part of me was dampened because and part of it was just me, like, not feeling like I could bring my full self to that environment. Yeah. Because it is so serious. It's a full-time, you know, and which is fine. But I think part of it, for my personality, I didn't feel like I could bring my full self there. And so inevitably, I was going to start feeling like
you're stifled
And you're right. Like, this new job could feel no more spiritual. It's not like it's bringing me closer necessarily just because I changed.
Yeah. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up, especially for you, is that, okay, let's say you make this change, because this is the other thing that I think that I struggled with, that I think a lot of people struggle with. You make this change, and let's say 6 months from now, you go, okay, this isn't working for me. I think our tendency is to go, well, I must not have been following God's will because now it feels hard, or now there's these obstacles and I made the wrong decision.
This must not be right.
This must not be right. Instead of not making it mean all of that, and making it mean like, oh, I'm learning more about myself. I'm learning more about what gifts I bring, what I want my life to look like. And I think it's less about, was that decision God's will? No, you have all the Christian freedom in the world. I don't think God cares that much what your second or third or fourth job is.
No,
right?
I think that really did give me such a freedom. The first day that we kind of decided that I was going to work for you, you told me, you were like, if in 6 months you don't want to be doing this anymore, that's okay.
Yes.
And I do feel like that is the way that Jesus looks at us.
Yes.
Like, that's not what it's about.
You'll find different neighbors to serve in a different job.
Yes.
Yes. And I think as parents, like what I would want to say to parents who are struggling with maybe what your kids are choosing is to just hold to the faith that their story is still being written. And, you know, I even remember when you were in college, you were like in your third year of college, and you said, I don't know if I even want to use this. I think I might want to like do hair.
Yeah, I was like, I might go to hair school.
And it would be so it would be so tempting, I think, for parents to go, oh my gosh.
Like, we just spent all this money on a
your
communications degree.
Right. And you're going to go to hair school.
Right.
But I don't see it that way. I think that all the experiences we have make us more of who we're supposed to be. We take those experiences, we learn from them, they change who we are, and then we bring all of that to the next thing we do, and then we bring all of that.
I mean, I was telling you when we were talking about this, like, imagine what it seemed like from the outside for you to have gone through all of medical school, gotten all of that paid for, got it paid off, and then a lot of people would see changing that as like, are you kidding? Like,
somebody in my actual family said, what a waste of her education.
A waste. Yeah, and it's
I'm like, no.
If they could, I mean, now it's like so clear that it's not a waste.
No.
But at the time, like, that was a huge turnaround. That was a huge flip that like took a lot of people, you know, back.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting too, because sometimes I think it's really good, and this will be interesting for you to do in your life, Em, because obviously I think Jamie Nato was the first one who called it like breadcrumbs. Like, when you look back to say, like, what were the things that defined me as I was growing up? And one of the things that always defined me was writing. And all of those years of medical school, I was too busy to, you know, to keep journals, to write. But it had always been my whole life a huge part of who I am. And now I live a life where writing is a big part of, you know, how I can lead people and lead myself and express myself in the world. And I was able to bring that back. I also have always had an eye for beauty and making things beautiful. And, you know, as much as I learned when I was in medicine, and for as thankful as I am for that journey and for my education, I'm so grateful that I had the courage to evolve from that, let myself keep becoming who I'm meant to become. And not to say that if you stay in that job, you won't do that. I just knew I wouldn't do that.
And I think that's fair. Like, if you know deep down, I mean, we also have, I feel like we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much intuition we have as, like, human beings. Like, you know when you're not in a good place.
Or you're not. I mean, we talk about a lot in my program. We talk a lot about true self. Are you living as your true self? Are you living from love, joy, peace? Do you see the fruits of the Spirit in your life? And I mean, I think that can be another way to kind of gauge it. Like, is that what my life is marked by now?
Yeah.
You know, versus I think some situations are more conducive to that and some aren't. And for me, that way of life, I was having to ignore a lot of myself. I was having to ignore a lot of my intuition, God-given wisdom, the Holy Spirit in me, whatever you want to call that. And now I feel like I have been able to design a life and to kind of slow my life down enough where I have
you
that
trust
again.
Your faith. You trust His Spirit in you. You trust what you feel, what you know.
Yeah, so listen, if I decide to go work at the Lowe's Garden Center, don't be alarmed.
Y'all, don't question it.
Don't question it. I just might. I love those plants.
Well, I feel like this has really, I mean, just in this moment, I feel like I felt a little more freed by it. I think it's something I am working on every day. Just like knowing my relationship with the Lord and like figuring that out. And I think it's been a big thing in my life, especially in my adult years, of like not feeling like I have as big of a faith as people around me or as people in the media or whatever it is. It's just easy to feel like that. And
that's because I love that you say that, Em, because that's because what are you marking that by? Mm-hmm. We often mark it by how devoted am I? How much time do I spend doing this? How much time, like we judge it by ourselves. What is the object of our faith? It's not us, right? Yeah. And so the measure of your faith is how much you're counting on someone else to be enough. And that faith and trust that you put in them. And then you're free to exercise your gifts. You're free to keep growing and learning. Like there's so much freedom in it.
Yes.
Instead of always trying to judge, like, am I getting more spiritual? Am I praying enough?
Am I feeling him more? Do I hear his voice?
Do I hear his voice? Yeah.
Was that God? I showed Mom this funny video by Jackie Hill Perry.
Yeah.
And it was a great video, but she was joking about how if someone says that God told them to get out of debt, like he probably
or said this is you're gonna be debt free.
Yeah, that probably wasn't them. They're lying. You know, like people are not hearing God say like or God didn't say to certain people these specific groups or this specific
Yes.
But I just thought it was funny because I think a lot of churches, just like in general today, it's easy to feel like I am the one missing out on these like big spiritual moments that all of these people are having. Not to say that they're not having spiritual experiences, sure, but like feeling led by God or talked to by God, like you're not normal if you're not feeling all of those ways.
Exactly. And I think it can be so relieving that we don't have to keep trying to measure ourselves by something like that. We have so much freedom.
There's nothing more we can do to deserve.
We have so much freedom to, develop the skills we've been given, to explore that with all the playfulness and creativity, kind of like a child, And, you know, where our view of God is not that he's up there going, well, she made the wrong turn right there. Well, she chose the wrong thing right there. That's not, I don't think that's how it works. I think he's a much more loving, insightful, patient, like, oh, interesting journey this one's on.
That is why I feel like the more that I focus on patience, kindness, love, joy, peace,
yes,
the more of that I see in my life, and the more I pursue those things,
yes,
is the more that I feel like I am doing I'm on the right path.
Yeah. And
you know,
other than, being in like something that scripture absolutely forbids, that can be so many different things. You can do that on so many different paths.
Yes.
So I think that's comforting to know.
It is very freeing, and
it's been fun talking about it today.
I know. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, it has. Let's finish up with our 3 things, or I might only have 2. But
I think I only have 2, but okay. That was because in one of them is enwrapped like 2 other things.
Okay.
So basically, new year, new me. Not really. But I will say I am trying to eat at home more. There's no like restrictive diet happening, but I am at least like trying to be more intentional about the things I eat. Okay. And just more eating at home than I have in the past, because I can tend to choose the quick option.
Yes.
But I've been making these wraps for lunch every day. Like, I'm not actually kidding when I say I've made it every day.
Tell us what's in it.
It's really honestly quite simple, but it's like taking over my mind. I'm a very I'm a hyperfixator.
I'm too, but go ahead. I'll eat the same thing for like 6 months. So I'm sure in a month
or 2 I will absolutely despise this wrap. But I basically,
of course,
no, I really will. But for now, I'm like very much enjoying it. So it's very specific, and if you don't have the specific things, like, it's not going to be as good.
Okay.
Trader Joe's wraps, obviously.
Do you mean like the
flour tortillas?
Oh, flour tortillas. Got it. Yes, they're to die for.
They're the best tortillas on the market
of all time.
They are very different than any other tortilla
at home. But
they're like at home made ones.
They are like at home. Yeah.
You have to have that. I do honey mustard and I'm also not saying this is healthy, because you're about to hear the ingredients, and it's by no means like a health decision. Okay. It's more just less spending.
That you love, yeah.
Yes. Honey mustard and mayonnaise on the wrap.
The wrap.
This is very important. Boar's head.
Oh, yes. It has to be boar's head. It
has to be boar's head, because
please tell me it's honey maple turkey.
Cracked pepper.
Cracked pepper. All right.
I think it's called cracked pepper.
I'm in with you.
It's something like that. But it is the most delicious deli meat. We have been having this conversation on deli meat, me and my friends, and it's not like, it's not always good.
Right.
Boar's head, I trust.
Yeah.
And if you have anything bad to say about boar's head, I don't want to hear it. If you want to have anything,
do not email us.
Do not. Don't tell me anything bad about this, because I'm not going to listen.
I'm not available for your...
No, I don't. I'm not going to hear it. American cheese on the bottom, okay?
Okay.
Panini pressed. Taking it back to the homeschool days.
To the homeschool days.
Oh, also lettuce. Lettuce in there. That's my best part.
Do you panini press with the lettuce on?
Yes.
Okay.
This is very controversial also. Some people, as in Katie, she's staring at me. Some people really despise hot lettuce. And I'm here to say...
It's like hot garbage.
I'm here to say I'm a fan of hot lettuce. I'll say it.
Wait. I'm confused.
Okay, let me just
set the stage.
You put the mayonnaise...
on one tortilla.
One tortilla. It's big. You put 2 slices of cheese.
Okay.
Turkey.
Yeah.
Shredded lettuce.
Got it.
Wrap it up.
Oh, like a burrito wrap.
Kind of like a burrito wrap, yes.
Got it. Then panini press it.
It's like all crunchy on the outside. This is another key important part. After it's done, you didn't know I was going to take you 15 minutes on this journey, and now you can't get out. Okay, you need boar's head. It's called Gourmets. Shout out Carly. She introduced me to this. It's like gourmet mayonnaise kind of, but it's chipotle flavored like dip. Okay. It's like aioli kind of.
Okay.
dip your wrap into this. And oh my gosh, I have eaten this every single day since 2 weeks ago. My insides are probably not okay. It's because it's kind of spicy.
Yeah.
I literally can't stop.
Wow.
So I'm sorry you had to endure that. And that's why I only chose 2 favorite things.
Okay, tomorrow we may have to reproduce this wrap.
I know, but see, we can't, if we don't have the Trader Joe's tortillas.
I think I do have some in the freezer. I buy them all the time. Are you kidding me?
We actually do keep them in the freezer now, too.
Yeah.
I had another thing, but like that was kind of a wild ride that I just took you guys on. I'm so sorry. Seriously, any hot lettuce haters out there, I need you to get out because I've heard a lot about it, okay? And I don't need to hear anything else about it.
You hot lettuce haters, you.
But I think that's enough.
That's enough for now. Are you sure?
We don't need any more favorites. That was wild, and I'm just so sorry.
Emmy goes, I don't know if I'm going to have more than 1 or 2 things because my one thing is going to take a while.
Trader Joe's wraps, boar's head deli meat, boar maze, boar's head. Those are my 3 favorite things, okay?
And no lettuce haters. No
Kylina, my roommate, is going to crack up because I got her turned on to these.
Okay.
And so now she eats them every day too. So we're like...
You know, you bring up the panini press. I don't even know if we still have ours from homeschool days. We got to look when we go upstairs. Okay, I'm going to give you one of the things that I'm loving right now, which is Ningxia Red.
Classic.
You what?
Classic.
It's a classic. I asked Emmy, I said, have I never talked about Ningxia Red? Because I literally drink probably 6 to 8 ounces a day.
This is so true.
It's a super juice drink from Young Living that I've been drinking for 9 years. And here's what I want to tell you is interesting about it. It's a very powerful anti-inflammatory drink. Mm-hmm. And before I started drinking it, there's a lot of things that I've changed since then, not just this drink. But before I went like on my natural health journey, we used to buy Motrin like in the big giant tubs.
I mean, I feel like I was fed that as I was like...
I think we probably fed that to you too. In these, like, if you're watching on YouTube, like... these big giant tubs, like this big.
Of Motrin.
And it dawned on me one time, like, okay, why are we so inflamed? Why are we needing to buy like a liter size container
of
anti-inflammatories? Mm-hmm. And as I talk to all my middle-aged friends, everybody does this. Everybody goes to Costco or Sam's or Walmart and buys a giant tub of anti-inflammatories. Well, I will tell you something. Since I started drinking this drink, it's not that we don't have it in the house, but you know, you might find a little bitty bottle. You gotta search. You'll find a bottle up there somewhere. But it has literally, over the years, been such a huge game changer for me. It helps with lots of different things. But I would say for me, that sort of antioxidant, like anti-inflammatory effect is so awesome. And in my natural health group, we're doing a Ningxia reset. So I have a link for you in the show notes. If you want to join us for the reset, it's basically where you're drinking this drink it's a 14-day reset. You're drinking this drink for 14 days and it comes in a kit where it tells you how many pouches to drink.
So are you like,
you're not only drinking that, you're following, whatever eating plan you want to follow, but you're following a plan intentionally. Okay. So you could have your wraps every day.
I don't know if you should. I'm not recommending those as a diet.
No, but I mean, you know, you follow whatever your plan is that you're like, this is how I'm going to eat, and you do your movement and then you drink the drink. So there's not a lot of things associated with it. But anyways, people have been getting insane results from it, and I do it all the time. So like, you know, I just love it. I drink it all the time.
Yeah, by the way, I'm going to need that on an order soon. We're out of it in our house. So.
Yeah, so even the young girls drink it. They love it.
Oh, it's so good.
So good. And I usually mix mine in the evenings with Pellegrino, which brings me to my second thing.
Sorry.
When we were in New York, we discovered a new sparkling water.
Oh, my gosh.
Tell them, what's the name of it, Em? Saratoga. We discovered a new sparkling water called Saratoga that's in this like dark blue container. Y'all, it is insanely good. The little bubbles are just more bubbly. There's more bubbles.
It's like, imagine this. Imagine a Pellegrino as like a wider, sometimes the way I describe things. If you get it, you get it. imagine a Pellegrino is like a wider bubble in your mouth.
A wider bubble. See, I think of it as 1,000 more bubbles.
No, Pellegrino?
Than Pellegrino.
No, that's what I'm saying. The Saratoga is like small bubbles.
Little delicious bubbles. So anyways, now we're mixing our Ningxia Red.
Welcome to House of Joy.
With our Saratoga.
Where you can figure out what kind of bubbles are in your sparkling water.
Yes, you can.
The real deal information you need to know.
Okay, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. We love you so much. We have so enjoyed talking about this. If you have questions, follow-up questions, or if you want to take issue with hot lettuce or anything we said about God's will, come into the reviews. Tell us everything. Leave your questions. Come on Instagram. Leave your questions. We would love to keep this conversation going. Emmy and I also, by the way, after our podcasts go live
on Thursdays.
Yeah, we've been going live on Instagram to kind of chat more about it.
I think did we do Thursdays or Fridays?
We've done both, but look for us to go live.
Whichever day
it's going to be on Thursdays.
On Thursdays, we're going to try to do it around like 10:30ish. Yeah, is when we've been trying to do it. But on there, you get the live, real, raw. Info.
And we also wanted to say thank you. Last week, we had so many people leave reviews on the podcast. Go to Apple and Spotify and follow or subscribe. We love when you do that. It helps other people that are as awesome as you find our podcast. So we appreciate when you do that. We love you so much.
Yes, we just love you guys so much. I hope you guys have the best week ever.
Yeah.
And we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.